There we go. All right, you guys, we're going to jump right into this. And actually, Elizabeth just did her first open house this past weekend. So congratulations to Elizabeth on it. Had a couple people come through, which was great. So we're going to talk about working your open house. And as you guys saw from our calendar invite, our sales pro team, right, our education department, Joy Worthy Johnson and David Hacker run phenomenal classes on open houses. I really recommend you guys take a look. I believe I put in the calendar invite when their next one is. I think it's next week. It's virtual lead gen open houses. So I really think that that's either prerequisite or one to take right after this, because this is a lot more about kind of getting to the nitty gritty, how to leverage marketing and kind of get yourself right in the head, so to speak, to host that open house. So we're going to talk about finding those open houses and preparing for them, creating custom marketing pieces. So Leah's actually going to go in and show us how to build a custom flyer on InTouch, which is particularly great for those of you out there who are hosting open houses for the listing agent and are not actually the listing agent yourself. Making the most of your time at the open house, how to run it like a pro, and then of course the follow-up. And Leah and I've got some good tips on the follow-up as well. Feel free to drop any questions in the chat. Curtis, if you could keep an eye on the chat, that would be great. I see Nakia's here as well, so hi Nakia. All right, so starting off, finding and preparing the open houses, right? So obviously, if you are a listing agent, you've already found your open house. Congratulations. If you are not the listing agent, here are some do's and don'ts on sourcing that open house, right? So let's focus on the do's. Really leverage that MLS. And if you're new to the business agent who's visited or new to the business peer group, this is something Nakia, Curtis, and I actually show probably once a month on how to source that. And I have a screenshot on the next page to share with you guys. But leverage the MLS, search for new, active, back on market, reactivated listings by Coldwell Banker Realty agents only. So that's really important. I also always recommend a big do in my book is set up a private showing with the listing agent. That's what LA means, prior to the open house. I always felt that for me, when I was hosting open houses for other agents trying to pick up buyers, if my first time in the listing was everyone else's first time, right, at the open house, I felt a little bit more stressed and unsure. I didn't know where all the light switches were. I maybe didn't know how to work the blinds. I felt like I wasn't going to have all of the questions answered. So it's always really good practice on that Thursday or Friday to ask the listing agent to meet you there and have them tour you through the property as if you are a potential buyer. Because you're going to hear from the horse's mouth, right? The great things about the listing, be able to answer questions that much easier when a buyer comes in on a Saturday or Sunday open house. You're also going to be more familiar with the listing. You're going to know where the light switches are, how to open the blinds, how to make things work, which doorways lead to what. That's going to be so, so key. So I recommend doing that. If everyone could mute yourself real quick, that would be great. Thank you so much. I also think that open houses and sitting open houses is a strategy for business. And so I used to, when I was newer in the business, I would just take any open house I could get. And there's a lot to be said for that, right? It gives you the opportunity to potentially pick up even more buyers. But as you start thinking about farming in conjunction with an open house, a really great strategy is to focus hosting open houses in the same areas or buildings that you farm, that you want to work in, because then individuals are getting you in their mailbox in a static postcard. Maybe they're getting you online through social media advertising and Instagram and Facebook, but then they're also seeing you in person. So that static postcard becomes you in real life. So if you're somebody who's thinking, I really want to specialize in XYZ area, or maybe I'm already farming this neighborhood, I learned when I was in sales that once I started doing that and only hosting in my neighborhood, doesn't mean I didn't help people out by taking them, but I really focused on having that. I would sometimes see the same buyers 2 weekends in a row, or I'd see the same homeowners 2 weekends in a row, right? The nosy neighbors. And people started saying to me, "Oh, I've seen you before. You must be the neighborhood expert." And I actually picked up several buyer clients just because they were looky-loos early in their search, didn't really want to work with a realtor, but they saw me 2 or 3 times in a row in the same neighborhood that they're looking in. And to them, it signaled, I must really know what I'm doing in this neighborhood in particular, and that's why they want to work with me. So it's a really good strategy for you guys to focus on it. And don't forget also, you know, what's really great about open houses is you guys can help control your income based on the open houses that you strategically choose to host open. What I mean by that is you can really look in your farm and say, I don't want to host open houses less than 350,000 because I want to try to pick up buyers that are looking in that price range and potential other homeowners that own in that price range that are going to come through to see what's going on in their neighbors. So it's a really great way to kind of focus and hyper target what you want to work with. The other really important do I have is know what else is on in that market in the area and be prepared to talk about it in a sense of, would you like me to set up a private showing for you, Mr. and Mrs. Potential Buyer? This unit didn't work out, which is such a bummer, but I know of a few others that actually do have a walk-in closet, a second full bath, and that outdoor space that you're really looking for that this unit just didn't meet for you. I know one's over there on Tallman, another one's over there on Cuthbert. I'd be happy to schedule a private showing for you. So really be familiar with the neighborhood, because when you are hosting an open house, right, and someone walks through, most of the time they're going to think you're the listing agent. So you want to make sure they know that you're not, but they also, that's your opportunity to shine and show that you are market expert in what they're looking for. So if someone's not working with a realtor already, or maybe they are and they're not satisfied with that realtor and they want to end that relationship and they're actively looking for a new realtor relationship, that's a really good way to make an impression in the 2 minutes you have to make an impression in an open house. And now more than ever, because we're all wearing our masks during these open houses, right? What we say is so important because we're not having that like face to face as much anymore, right? We're really shielded on that. So it's a really good way to make that connection. Some don'ts for you guys. So this is my biggest don't. And Nakia and I talk about this a lot during the New to the Business peer group, but don't e-blast out to the office for open house opportunities for two big reasons. One, you're not in as much control then, and you're not strategically choosing the open houses or going after the open houses you'd like to work. And two, if I'm a listing agent and Elizabeth emails out the office today saying she's available for open house help, 3 weeks from now when I list something, I am not going to remember that Elizabeth sent that out. I'm just not, right? Because it didn't strike me in the moment. I didn't need that help that moment. And so I'm going to forget. So the best way, again, is to leverage that MLS and search and source the open house opportunities you want to go after rather than e-blasting out the whole office. Don't get caught knowing an easy answer to a question, or not knowing, I should have put there. Sorry for my not putting that double negative in there, but don't get caught not knowing an easy answer. So you're going to want to gather information that buyers will typically ask. So if you're in a condo, right, what are some of the number one questions buyer asks? What are the HOA dues? Are there any special assessments? What's in the reserves? What's the pet policy? Can I have rentals, right? And whether it's single family or condo, most everyone's also interested in what are the age of the mechanicals, right? How old's the HVAC? How old's the furnace? When were these appliances purchased? If it's a single family, they might be concerned about the roof. When was the basement refinished? Is there waterproofing down there? Think of yourselves as the buyers as you prepare for an open house. And that way you can prepare yourself with questions, compare yourself with answers, pardon me. And most listing agents are going to have all these questions answered already, some even in the form of a feature sheet, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit later. So that way it should be easy for you guys. Don't be unprepared. I can't tell you how many times I've made the mistake of coming to an open house unprepared. I either couldn't find a pen that worked and I forgot that that's something really important in an open house. I probably should have checked that before. Or I realized that I'm on the 5th floor of a building that I have to buzz people in on, and I forget that I need scrap paper to put a note on the door that says, please buzz Emig to let them in, right? Or whatever it might be, don't be unprepared. This is a time for you. You have a whole week usually to lead up to an open house, maybe less, but it's at no less than a day for most individuals to really make sure that you have all the materials necessary. You know all the information you need to go forth and have a great open house. And then I always say, don't just rely on the MLS feed to market that open house for you. You're always going to want to make sure that the listing agent, or if you are the listing agent, you advertise the MLS or the open house in the MLS, pardon me, because that syndicates out to Zillow, Redfin, Realtor.com, all the hot sites that buyers typically are looking at, HomeSnap. But you're also going to want to leverage your social media. You're going to want to use open house signs. All 3 of our city central offices, and actually if you're joining us from Oak Park or Hyde Park, you know your offices have these as well. We have open house signs that you can check out with the SSAs. You reserve them, check them out. You do need to bring them back that Monday or Tuesday so we can check them back in, but we do have those open house signs available for you. So think about too, how many open house signs do I need, right? And if it's a high-rise condo building, I really encourage all of you to ask that listing agent, are open house signs allowed? Some buildings don't allow it. And I don't know about you guys, but I don't want to grab 2 signs, huge signs, lug them around my trunk, lug them out of my car all the way to the building to find out I can't have them there. So make sure you ask, but then also leverage that farming to market that. So open house templates are great. We went through with Leah last week, several brand serve options to be able to post that through. So those are a really good option for you guys to use for that. I took a screenshot of my MLS open house finding search for you guys to take a look at, okay? So kind of working from that top down, right? My MLS automatically defaults to showing contingencies because that's what I want for my MLS. I want to remove those because most properties that are contingent aren't going to be hosting an open house. So make sure you don't have any contingencies in the status search. Then identify which areas you want or do primarily work in or that you already farm, right? Your name already has a presence there if you farm. So that's what we were talking about on the other page, like think strategically, but put the neighborhoods you want to host in there. You can also draw a map search as well. So if you're really hyper specific, like I don't want just Lincoln Square, I want this pocket in Lincoln Square, you can do that. Just remember, the more tight you make the search parameters, the less opportunities there may be within those search parameters, okay? So think about that. Property type is another big one. So think about the pros and cons for you and your business of condo versus single family home based on what you're looking for. So make sure you put that in. And then the search price. Again, you can control the price point of potential buyers you want to work with or potential homeowners you want to work with by putting in parameters there. You'll notice I didn't put any other parameters, I didn't do any features, but the most important thing is there at the bottom, and I put very important for you guys to be able to check off. In a normal search, list office name is not automatically going to be present, okay? But if you click that add and remove fields and you start typing list, it will show up there for you to add. Also, if you join Nakia's Q&A session for MLS that's happening, I believe, next week that we're going to email out today, you can ask her, how do I make sure it's a preset field? And there every time. And we can go ahead and go through that. But remember, you guys can only host open houses for your fellow Coldwell Banker Realty agents. What that means is if it's a Coldwell Banker franchise, we can't host for them. If it's at properties, if it's Compass, Berkshire Hathaway, Baird & Warner, whatever it is, you can't host for them and they cannot host for you either. So just remember that very important piece of it. And by putting in that search parameter, by the way, it just eliminates you guys from going through several hundred options potentially, and it's going to narrow it down. Like when I actually did this search for Lincoln Square North Center, Edgewater, Coldwell Banker only 250 to 750, I think I had about nine options in there, 9 fellow realtors at Coldwell Banker I could reach out to and say, hey, I love your listing. Would love the opportunity to host it open. I noticed you don't have a time for it. I'd be happy to do either day, Saturday or Sunday in these time frames. So customizing your marketing, we got Leah on the call because I'm really excited for Leah to kind of show us some of the questions we've been getting, especially from agents that aren't the listing agent, is how can I have marketing materials present with me at the open house that really showcase the listing, make sure that the buyer's walking away with information, but it's my contact information on it and not necessarily the listing agent. So the best 2 ways to do that are going to be In Touch, which is what I put a screenshot here of. And actually Leah's going to go in live as soon as I stop sharing my screen to kind of do a crash course in that for us. And again, this works whether you're hosting your own listing or you're hosting it for somebody else, because you can drag and drop and change that information in. And then the HomeSpotter Boost ads are really great to do on your own listings to increase engagement on your social media post and try to get the leads directly from that ad into your InTouch CRM. So without further ado, Leah, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen so that you can share yours for us and show us how to make those InTouch flyers.
Perfect. Thank you, Rachel. Oops. Okay. Oh. Can you see my screen okay?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, perfect. So in order to add office listings, flyers, etc., that are branded to you, you first need to check that you have the Office MLS ID added to your InTouch account. And you can do that by going to Account at the top right, My Account, and selecting MLS Setup, and ensure that you have the Office ID selected. So that is your first step there. Second step, if you haven't already, is to go to Listings and Market My Listings. And over to the left, you'll go to My Office Listings. And this allows you to feature office listings on your website in addition to any listing that you're doing an open house for. So if someone comes to your website, they'll be able to find that listing and it will be branded to you. Over to the right here. Okay, so ensure that you have the MLS Office ID and then begin adding office listings to your website, especially those that you plan to do an open house for. So we'll go to Marketing at the top, Marketing Center. And you can create an e-blast or print marketing, but we're doing a flyer, so we'll select print marketing to the left. Over to the left, you want to ensure that you have flyers selected and listing enabled only. This allows you to add in that MLS ID or address, and it pulls up all of the listing enabled flyers. Okay. And you do not have to choose a flyer that reads open house. You can change the text on a just sold, just listed, etc. And if you are a global luxury specialist, you'll have global luxury flyers to choose from as well. My preferred flyer is the property floor flyer because of the symmetry of the photos. But of course, you can move forward with any flyer that works best. So choose a listing. You'll want to type in the MLS ID. And I'm just typing in any number here. Select the listing. Personalize. And the MLS photos and remarks should populate on the listing, but you'll want to ensure that the agent does have multiple photos for that listing. Okay, so we see photos have pulled in, address, etc. You can enlarge that by the toolbar here, and you can also zoom in if you need to get closer. Property title, marketing remarks, and then all your contact information here. To change the photos, you want to select the photo, select the image icon to replace. And over to the right, you'll see MLS images. And you can go ahead and replace your desired images. So because this is a template, I don't recommend deleting photos or adding photos. But just go ahead and switch out whatever photos you choose. And property title, you can type in whatever works best, your text, etc. Once you're done, you save. Okay. Then you can exit. And you can download right here and print off in the office or at home. Very easy to do. Any questions in the chat, Rachel?
I don't see any questions, but I learned something new. I didn't know that you could just pull from others listed in your office. That's so cool. That makes it so much easier than I even thought.
Yes, I thought that's what you were referring to. Yes, you can if you're doing an open house for someone in your office. This is not company wide. Um, But yes, if you are doing an open house for someone in your office, you can easily create a flyer, e-blast, postcard if you choose. I have seen other agents add additional offices to that office MLS ID. It's nothing that I've tested, but you can definitely try, and I'm happy to work with you through that as well. But very simple to do, and that's it. Any
You know,
questions with that?
Lee, I'm sorry, just to piggyback on that question, if I was doing an open house and I have permission with a Coldwell Banker agent up in Evanston, are you saying that I can only do them for my particular office?
To pull in that listing, the listing images and remarks. Now, if you wanted to do it for someone else in your office, you would just create a regular flyer, but you'll have to upload the photos. So if we select this here, you will not choose a listing because it's not one in your office. So it would not be available to pull in the photos or the remarks. And you'll just have to come in here and upload.
Okay,
So,
I got it.
yeah, so it's just a little extra work on the back end. And you'll upload the photos from that listing.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Let's see if this works. We have some other photos in here. Yeah, so pretty
Chris,
much.
oh, go ahead. Sorry, Leah.
Oh, no, that's okay. Go right ahead.
So Chris, that's what so everyone just has some clarification. So for agents within your own office, like Lincoln Park office, if you're a Lincoln Park agent, Gold Coast office, if you're a Gold Coast agent, then yes, it would work the first way. If not, then
Yeah.
that's what she's showing you the second way. It's really just copying and pasting, right, and uploading photos. So it's just a little bit extra step, but again, that's if it's from someone outside of your office.
Yeah, so you can download those photos from the MLS and click that photo replace. And instead of selecting those MLS images, because there aren't any, you'll just upload and create the flyer from there, and it is still branded to you. So yeah, it's a little extra work, but not much, but very easy to do for agents within your office. And the same works for an e-blast as well.
Perfect, perfect. Thank you so much, Leah.
Yeah, awesome. So I'll unshare my screen here.
And we'll go back to mine.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, guys, I'm going to go ahead and start. Curtis, can you see my slide? Or Leah or somebody?
Yes,
okay,
yes.
Thank you, thank you. So again, we went through, I think it was last week, right, Leah, where we talked a lot about brand serve and different options and stuff like that. So when we talk about customizing the marketing, right, we just went through with Leah how to do those flyers through InTouch, which is awesome because then that consumer, right, that potential buyer is walking away with a photographic reminder of what the unit looked like, your contact information, some hot takes about the property. But then where your social media is concerned, I really love leveraging brand serve for creating those social media templates. And I built one out, a fake one out for you guys to take a look at, but I didn't realize you actually have a lot of space. I had to keep typing and I gave up things I wanted to do because this was an example, but you have a lot of space that you can fill in here. But you can also add up to 6 open houses in one graphic. So if you are a listing agent and you have multiple houses open, or multiple properties, I should say, open in one weekend, or you yourself are hosting multiple opens in one weekend, you can actually highlight all of them in one really great reel and make them all together. But then you can also, it will also create one for each open house and then one for all of your open houses, which is great. So definitely take advantage, play around with that. There's a couple different templates, like there's some for just one agent, teams, things like that, but I really recommend going in and taking a look at it, because the other really big thing that I love about BrandServe is the consistency, right? So every time you post an open house, you're going to be using the same color scheme, the same templates, you know, our CB logo is already there, and it just makes it look better in your feed. And also then every client that you have is getting the same level of marketing for that, which is awesome. So I want to just put in a slide about virtual open houses as well, because this is a big question. Obviously, as many of you know, we had to pivot to virtual everything in March, but particularly our open houses, and actually public open houses weren't even allowed for the stay-at-home shutdown order, but then they started being allowed. So during that time, a lot of agents pivoted to doing virtual open houses only. And what I've been suggesting to agents is that every in-person open house should now have a virtual component as well. Why the heck not? You're there anyway, right? So whether you're hosting an in-person open house or not, having that virtual component is really huge. It's great for the seller. They're going to get more eyeballs on that property. So if you're the listing agent, that's awesome. If you're not the listing agent, you just let them know how many people saw it, so the listing agent could then tell the seller, wow, like, yeah, 3 people came through the in-person open house, but 125 saw the virtual open house, which is great. Build in that time before or after that in-person open house to host it virtually. I recommend not making the mistake of doing a virtual open house during the same time frame, only because what you don't want to be doing is having your cell phone up, doing a great video, and have a buyer walk through the door, right? And totally interrupt your virtual open house. So build in a little time before or a little time after so that you can host that virtual open house uninterrupted. Do 2. Have one, if you're doing an open house 1 to 3, have a virtual open house 12:30 to 1, and have another one at 3:30 to 4, right? Or 3 to 3:30, pardon me. MLS does allow you to market that virtual open house as well. So if you're only doing a virtual open house, you can actually put that in there and put the Zoom link in there, or the Facebook event link for people to tune into. And I really recommend also making sure you bring the right equipment. Okay, shaky videos are kind of annoying for most people, and bad audio is going to turn someone off. I'm not suggesting all of you go out there and you buy those stabilizers. I'm not saying go crazy, but just think consciously about what can I do to make this video look and sound good. So using headphones that plug in or Bluetooth connect to your phone while you're doing the recording, that's a really big component of it, because then you're not getting as much outside noise. You're not hearing like shuffling. You might not hear your footsteps as much if you've got the headphones in. And then just really working to stabilize the camera. So one of the things that I learned during this virtual world is if you're walking around with the camera, the best way to stabilize it is actually to hold it against the top of your chest, because you're going to hold it a little bit more steady than if your arm is extended, and that chest height is more at the height that your eyes would be as well. So it just works out really easy to kind of like stabilize in the moment. You can leverage virtual open houses really well on social media, right? Create a Facebook event for people to be able to join and then go live in that event. Works really, really well, because you can invite people to a Facebook event, right? Maximize going live on both Facebook and Instagram, even at separate times during the open houses. That way you can leverage your Instagram followers and Facebook presence as well, right? A big difference though is Instagram doesn't allow you to create that event that people can register to. Now you can go live on TV, which is really good on IGTV, but then on Facebook you can maximize having that event, having people like it, say they're going to that virtual event, and you might get your attendee list a lot higher. And then one thing a lot of people don't realize is that every time you go live, you can actually save that video and share it back to your page, and it's there forever. So that's one really useful tip. Now, sometimes when we go live, we don't really care about sharing, but when it's a virtual open house, when you go live, being able to actually share and post that video to your feed extends the life of the live screening. Meaning, let's say I missed your 1 to 1:30 window for the virtual open house, but it's posted on your page at 1:35. I can then watch it again. And you're still going to get the analytics of who's watching it after it's not live anymore. So those are some things to really think about. I think especially for you newer agents out there, hosting that virtual open house at the same time you're there in person, right before, right after, why not? You're already there. It's going to take an extra 5 minutes or so, right? And be able to talk about the market. That's why when we think about our previous slides about being prepared to know what's on, know what the stats are in the marketplace, what's a 2-bed, 2-bath selling for in West Loop. If that's where you are, you should know what that market price is and check out InfoSparks before. Those are things you can fill that time as you're talking through, right? You can only talk about a 2-bedroom, 2-bath so long on a virtual open house, but you can talk about what's happening in the market. You can talk about what you're seeing. What's the difference between a 2-bed, 2-bath and a 2-bed, 1-bath in that area, in that building? You know, what are rentals doing in that area? And if you're a renter out there and you've been thinking about buying, this is why it's actually a really good deal right now to buy, whether it's this property or another 2-bed, 2-bath, because XYZ. So these are some things to kind of think about as you go through. Then making the most of your time at the open house. So this was something that I, teach from experience, as they say. I used to hate open houses, you guys. I used to think they were so boring, and I would get like so annoyed to host them. And I used to be on a team, so I had no choice but to host our listings open. So I had a lot. Like there was some weekends where I had 4, 2 on Saturday, 2 on Sunday. So they used to drive me crazy. And I realized it's because I wasn't thinking of an open house as business time. I was looking at it like it's interrupting my Saturday or Sunday, or it's interrupting showings I could be doing, when really it is a set 1.5 or 2 hour time frame that you're giving yourself, whether it's a busy open house or a slow open house. If you treat it like business time, you will be maximizing that time. So if it's a busy open house, right, you have to get your mindset right. You have to be ready to be on. You got to be excited to be at that open house. You have to believe that you know the questions that are about to be asked of you. You know those answers. Make sure that you have plenty of open house materials. When we talk about, right, plenty MLS sheets, plenty sign-in sheets, and pens. And I think I have a slide on everything to bring in. Client version MLS sheets. Make sure you have a lot of materials because you're anticipating a busy open house. Prepare to multitask your relationship building. What I mean by that is if it's a busy open house, you might have, now it's COVID and we just talked about this at the start of the call, maybe the max I can have is 2 to 3 people in there, but that's 2 to 3 people I'm trying to build relationships with in a short amount of time. So make sure that you're on and you're really prepared to make a lasting impression to each and every person that comes through that door, and that you can really leverage that. And obviously the ones that are more chatty or more conversational, you might have a better chance of picking them up as potential buyers, but really think about, where can I stand, right? Where can I stand to make sure that I see the most people as they're coming in, as they're walking through? I can catch them before they leave, so I don't necessarily get caught up in that. That's a really good thing to think about. And that's why it's so important to visit that open house, visit that listing, pardon me, prior, so that you can already plan that out in your head, right? I also started getting really good at writing notes for myself, so secret notes, to remember specifics of people that came through. So let's say John and Susie come through and they sign in on the sign-in sheet. Once they start walking around, I'm going to like check their name to remember that it's John and Susie. And I might even have notes on my phone so I can remind myself like, oh, this one didn't work for them. They really need a 2-bed, 2-bath with a laundry room. And this one has laundry and building, but not laundry room. So when I make my follow-up calls, I have something specific to remember and talk about. And that's going to make them feel like, they were incredibly special to me and I remembered those things. So kind of keep that in mind for you. Like, oh, this one did, or they really loved this one, but the price is too high. They'd like something about 20K lower. So when I make that first follow-up call, I'm going to already have a few addresses I'd like to pitch to them to take them on private tours. The other big key thing is follow-up. So once you are done, if it is a 1 to 3 o'clock open house at 3:05, you should be calling that listing agent or sending them a text saying 5 people came through, 2 had realtors, these are pictures of the realtors' cards, or these are the names of the card. If it's your open house and you're the listing agent, 3:05, be typing that email to that seller, because any seller is wondering at 3:01, how many people came through my open house? Was anybody interested? What did they think and say? So if you're hosting it for the listing agent, they're getting hit up right away from that seller. You want to give them instant feedback, right? That feedback is so important to the seller. It's invaluable. And if you're hosting an open house for one of your colleagues, if you are quick at follow-up, quick at response, giving them thorough remarks of what was said when people were there, you are top on their list when they have another listing they need an open house, right? So if Christopher hosts an open house for me and he's thorough, he asks to see it beforehand, I can see he's bringing materials, it's great. And at 3:05, he's sending me a detailed email or text or giving me a call letting me know the feedback so I can tell my seller right away. Next time I'm making something live on the market and I don't want to host the open house, I'm going to call Christopher. I'm not going to wait for him to call me. He did such a good job that first time. I want to secure that every time. So think about how important that is, whether you're the listing agent or not. And if it's a slow open house, right? This is what used to kill me as I hated these slow open houses. But if it's a slow open house, mindset is still everything. You're not on necessarily, but you are ready to work. So always come to every open house prepared with the possibility that no one will come, so that if no one comes, you're still maximizing your time in that property, right? It's still 2 hours of work time. Bring your book club book for our Coaching and Confidence book club, right? It keeps you in the real estate mindset. Don't just bring any book, bring something real estate related, so that if somebody did come through that door, you're not having to change your brain from Jane Eyre to real estate. I have to be on now, right? You're already in that real estate mindset. Have that hotspot on your phone to connect with your SOI. What I mean by that is maybe you have your iPad up and you're hotspotting off your phone and you're working through InTouch or Clients for Life, and you're going to make calls and log them in because it's a Saturday and Sunday. Most people aren't working. They're available. They'll probably take your call, right? Maybe you want to take time to do database management. I uploaded my big old list into InTouch because Leah helped me do that. The SSAs helped me do it, but I haven't gone through and categorized. I haven't gone through and set up drip campaigns or email campaigns, and I want to do that, right? Or a lot of you might decide, I don't have time during the week to build social media posts. So I can pre-build them. I can build drafts. I can go into BrandServe and I can make sure that I've got several things drafted out that I want to talk about this week, right? Or I can just even create those posts in Instagram and save them as a draft. At any given time, you guys, my Instagram has between 10 and 13 drafts, because if nothing's going on in my life, I want to have backup to be able to share and not have to think about it. And then lastly, right, learn the market. Maybe that's the time where you say, I'm going to dedicate, this 2-hour time to InfoSparks, to really becoming the expert in either the neighborhood I'm in right now or another one I want to work in, right? That's the best advice I could give you guys, because if you don't come prepared to make the most out of that 2 hours, even if no one comes, you're going to start to hate open houses. You're going to think it's wasted time. Man, I spent 2 hours here. Only 2 people came through. I spent the whole time just scrolling through my phone, being bored, turning on lights, turning off lights. That's crazy. Your time is your money in real estate. Right? So if you have that allocated, dedicated time, you have to sit there. You want to be prepared for 20 people to come through that door or 0 people. But either way, you have the work ahead of you. And I see Christopher ask, can I play classical music? You, of course, can play classical music. I would recommend keeping it down pretty low so that people can still chat. I don't think it's the worst thing ever to have something like that. Just be thoughtful about what kind of music you have playing. Right? So then when we think about running it like a pro, right? How am I going to make sure that I run this open house really well? So remember that you've got a minute or less to make that great first impression and introduction, greeting people as they come through that door. It is high customer service time. It is schmizing with your eyes because no one can see you're smiling because you're wearing a mask. It's being warm and inviting to each and every single person that comes through that door, right? You're also going to want to make sure that they sign in to that sign-in sheet. Whether you decide to use an app like Open House Pro and have them sign in through your iPad, or have them actually sign in with a pen on paper, that's going to be really important, because that also gives them a chance. They're pausing, right? They're taking the time to write that down, which gives you that extra few seconds to make that connection. You want to be prepared with stats on the market, specifically in the area that you are in that moment, right? Someone coming to an open house in Lincoln Square for 2-bed, 2-bath might not really care what's happening in Pilsen for 2-bed and 2-baths. They're clearly at that open house in Lincoln Square. I'm not saying don't know the market everywhere. That's so important too, because maybe they're going to tell you we're kind of looking all over the place, and you can then highlight. But you really want to know that area that you're in, because chances are that's where they want to be. Also, be that resource. You should always ask if they're using a realtor, because we don't want to interrupt someone else's agency relationship, right? So if they say no, make sure you highlight your value. And if they say yes, I'm working with a realtor, you still want to highlight your value, because like I said earlier, maybe they're not happy with that realtor and they want to actually move away from that agency relationship and find somebody new. Or maybe they lied. Because if I go into a store and you say, can I help you? I'm going to be like, no. Maybe you could, but like, I'm going to say no, because I'm that person. I want to figure it out myself. So, but if you are that resource, if you're highlighting your value, if you're talking about, ooh, if you overhear them say that they hate that orange color wall that seller painted in, how could anyone paint that wall? You know what? I get it. Orange isn't for everybody, but I've got a guy, actually a handyman, that can come and paint that really quickly. So the good thing is paint is not permanent, and we can fix that orange wall for you. But letting them know, I got a guy. I've got that handyman that can come in, right? Or, I'm not sure, that doesn't, I'm not an inspector, so I can't really talk to what those cracks might exactly be. But when you have a really good inspector like I have for my clients, it's something that you can really work out and decide, is it going to be, is it a crack because of settling, or is it a foundation crack, right? And then lastly, anticipate their questions and be prepared with answers, right? And then have those takeaways that remind them of you. One of the best things that I ever did was started putting my headshots on my business cards. I was like, up and down, I swore like that I would not be that realtor that has my face everywhere. But then I realized, after not having my face everywhere, that when I give someone a business card without my headshot on it, there's nothing to remind them of me. Because people aren't really name people. Most people are visual people, right? So you want to have your headshot on everything, your contact information on everything. When you print out the MLS sheets, you want to print it from your MLS so that your information is below, and you're able to then have them take it away. And then when they say, oh, we've got a question, they're most likely going to call whomever is on that marketing material. And then be prepared with the questions. The last thing that you want to do is host an open house where someone asks you, do you know what the HOAs are? And you don't. Do you know what the pet policy is? Oh, you know what? I don't. Let me text the agent real quick. Do you know what the reserves are? I'm not really sure. Let me text. And I'm not saying you have to be the expert, especially if it's not your listing, but anticipate the questions someone's most likely to ask you, so that you don't have to say, let me text the agent, let me text the agent, let me text the agent. You actually look so much more prepared. And that is going to, again, make that lasting impression with that potential buyer, and frankly, sellers, right? Especially price points. You might have someone who's looking to buy because they're going to sell where they live. So you're not just trying to pick up your buyers, you're trying to impress upon potential homeowners what you would do for them if you were their listing agent. So always have that in the back of your mind through that. Then this is kind of a go-to list that I have, and I'm sure there's some materials here I'm forgetting, and I would love Nakia or Curtis to like chime in on here, but you're going to want a sign-in sheet, or you can use an app like Open House Pro, which is also great. Clean pens and hand sanitizer are so key. And actually, that's one thing Elizabeth and I talked about as she prepped for her open house this past weekend. A lot of the restaurants right now, when you go to pick up and, curbside pickup, they've got clean pens on the right, and then, or on the left, pardon me, and then when you're done signing, you put it on the right so that staff can clean those off. So think about maybe doing that, but also just having hand sanitizer right away for people to use the minute they come into the property. It's 2021, it's COVID, people expect it. You're not going to offend anyone by saying, hey, just a real quick squirt of the hand sanitizer. That way you guys can feel comfortable, opening all the cupboards or, touching all the door handles, things like that. MLS client version sheets. Client version. Just have that mantra in your head. When we are giving clients MLS sheets, they should always be given the client version of those sheets, meaning they don't see agent remarks and they don't see the compensation. So just keep that in mind. Custom flyers or brochures, like we learned from Leah. Right now, if it's your listing and you're using Listing Concierge, you're going to have those brochures there, right? Which are already branded to you, which is great. But if you're hosting a listing for somebody else, go through InTouch like Leah just showed us and create those custom flyers. All three of our offices actually have nice paper. So if you wanted slightly heavier paper than, your typical 8.5 by 11, just ask the SSAs. They'll help you get that settled. You can run through and have those printed for you in the office. The property feature sheet. So this is something that I really recommend every agent, when you're about to list a property, you should always create a property feature sheet. This is a one-pager hot list of almost every question a buyer could come with. So every time I had a listing, I would make one of these. I just did it on Word. I made sure it was branded to me. It wasn't anything super fancy, but it would break down, you know, new wood blinds 2018, hardwood floors refinished 2020, you know, roof tore off, brand new roof done 3 years old. Like, it really broke down what I could anticipate buyers asking in one sheet. That was super easy for them to just reference as they're walking through the property. And if it's not your listing, you should have that sheet, right? So you can get those answers and have those answers on hand and ask the listing agent, hey, would you mind if I redid this sheet? Just, I put it on my, you know, I put it on my, my header and put my contact information. I'll make sure it's not in the listing when I leave. Just ask. They might say no, but they might say yes. Business cards. It's always good to have cards with your picture on them, like I reminded you guys all just now. But you also want a nice, healthy stack of those because you don't want to run out of business cards. And then the door signage and tape. This was something I had to learn the hard way, as you've heard me say. But you might be in a situation where you have to put, hey, call Rachel and put your cell phone number for access. How are you supposed to let people know how to access the property if you don't have that door sign and tape to be able to post it there? So one trick I learned, you guys, is I went to Target and I actually bought like a closable plastic container, and that was my open house container. And in it at all times, I had sign-in sheets, pens. I didn't have hand sanitizer, though now it would be. I had business cards, scrap paper for door signs, and tape. At every given time, that was always in my plastic container, so it didn't like it, so the papers and everything didn't get beat up and gross in the trunk of my car. And that way, all I had to do on Friday when I was prepping was print out, you know, the open house sheet, I'm sorry, the client version sheets from MLS, maybe the brochure and the feature sheet. That's all I had to add to that bucket. But always, 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 I just had like, you know, 100 business cards in there, like 4 or 5 pens in there, just so I didn't have to remember to pack an open house bag every time. One thing I realized I left off this sheet is booties. So especially if it's your listing, booties are a great thing to invest in. Even if it's not your listing, I encourage you guys to buy them from Amazon for not very much money, and bringing them in and providing those for people as they walk through the open house. So maybe they either don't have to take off their shoes if they don't want to, and then the carpeting, the flooring is all protected from booties. So those are kind of my hot takes. I'd love if Nakia or Curtis, if you guys are still on, if there's anything I've forgotten or you want to chime in on, I'd love to hear you guys. And then I put the swag as optional. So some of you guys might decide I want to do custom pens, or I want to have custom keychains that I want to have, or water bottles. You know, that's totally up to you as additional. I'd probably stay away from food given COVID unless it's individually wrapped food.
Rachel, I'll chime in
First.
There you go, Curtis. Never mind.
What'd she say? Nakia, you go first.
Thank you, sir. The only thing I would add are you may want to look at some of the functions. I sort of combined in the past when I was selling the client versus the MLS sheets. So you may want to take a look at Cloud CMA property report. That's a pretty robust report that includes additional data that could be important as clients are trying to make their purchase decision. To Chris's point, you want to have the notice of no agency form handy. So we constantly talk about dual agency. Remember, if there's an unrepresented buyer, you do not have to be the dual agent. So you definitely want to be aware and have access to that form. And I love the touchless open houses, meaning you may get there a few minutes early, turn on all the lights, open all the doors, all that fun stuff to make people feel as comfortable as possible. And then lastly, you may want to partner with your lender, your guaranteed rate affinity lender, so that sometimes they will host or co-host the open house with you. And that's also a safety conversation as well, that you may want to partner with someone in the office to be there with you as well. Those are my tips.
Love it. Ladies, thank you for the good information. You know, just practical purposes, you know, during the winter months, you're always going to ask everybody to kick their shoes off at the front door. But a little tip is if you take a picture of the stack or the pile of shoes, I stole this from Hunter Andre. He takes a picture of the pile of shoes, he puts it on his social media. He also sends it to his seller and says, you know, I'm having a bang up open house over here today. Or if you're doing it for another agent, you send it to the listing agent and say, hey, listen, I got 6 people in here currently. We're kind of really busy. Also about, you know, the agents always ask, you know, are you working with somebody when you walk into an open house? I think you get a better response if you ask them, what's the name of your agent, or who's helping you look? They will be more obliged to tell you a name as opposed to just say, yes, I'm working with somebody. If you point blank ask them who's helping them look, they'll answer the question. You know, they'll say, Christopher's helping me look. And about business cards, they act as a crucifix walking into Count Dracula's castle. I give my buyers a stack of my business cards and tell them to go out and look at any open house they want. When they walk in the front door, give it to the listing agent, and the listing agent knows that you're working with somebody, and they will let you walk around freely. It's just a good way to, you know, make sure that everyone knows you're on the up and up. I think the practical purposes, but wow, that was a lot of great information. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I think I still have one more slide, and that's the follow, but all great points. And actually, I dropped Nakia's point about the Cloud CMA property report in the chat, because I think that's a really good thing for all of you guys to go take a look at, and something you can ask her in that Q&A session we have coming up. So the open house might be done, but the work is not. So you have attendees, you have email addresses, you have phone numbers, you have first and last names. So make sure that you set up your attendees in a drip campaign through InTouch, right? And you can work with Leah Scott one-on-one if you're not sure about that, but also in Sales Pro, we run tons of classes on that. But there are buyer drip campaigns that mean you set it and forget it. And your client, or your potential client, I should say, is going to get reached out to via email. And it looks like from you, it looks like Curtis is thinking about me every time he sends it, but really it's a drip campaign. It's an auto campaign for them to go out. Schedule calls, emails, texts to those attendees in your calendar. Time blocking is key. The other thing I learned is if I was hosting a Saturday open house, I did not wait until Monday to call. Almost every realtor, like the way I was taught, was like, oh, you wait till Monday to call. If I'm hosting a Saturday open house, I'm calling the next day. Sometimes I'm even calling that afternoon. If they said they had no realtor and they seemed really eager and their search is going well, we had a good rapport, I'm not going to wait to be the same as every other realtor and call when every other realtor is calling. So if you came through Saturday, chances are I'm calling you that Sunday morning. I'm going to try to catch you before you go see another open house. I'm going to see if you want a private showing. It's COVID. Who doesn't want a private showing right now, right? And I don't have to wait outside or be, you know, bumping elbows with somebody else looking through the same property. Don't forget to put your attendees in Prospect Square so they can get clients for life. You can be their resource beyond just real estate, right? Clients for Life is our touch point to potential clients and our current clients on reaching them on a level beyond just real estate that they can engage in. And if it's your listing, it's really important to reach out to those agents that did have buyers come through, or agents themselves that came through. Listen, like I said at the very beginning, my next door neighbor was selling their property. I went to that open house and I'm an agent. I just brought the card. I gave it to the listing agent, said, hey, I'm an agent. I live literally next door. I was curious about the property. And I look at that as a networking opportunity. The more realtors you have the opportunity to meet and to be friendly with, the better. Because now, if I had a buyer looking at another listing of theirs and I can reference that we actually know each other, we met, great job on that open house, I can't believe you sold it in one weekend, congrats, I might have a better leg up getting my buyer that deal on the next time around, right? Because I have camaraderie and a rapport with the other agent. The other thing in light with our LinkedIn that we talked about last week, right? Link up with those attendees through LinkedIn. They met you in a professional capacity. Look them up in LinkedIn, LinkedIn with them there and send a friendly message there to connect. I think sometimes we forget about that, but LinkedIn is a professional platform. And if you're professional with your reach out there, that can be really, really helpful as well. So I got us done right at 3 o'clock. I'd like to thank all of our correspondents today. Leah Scott coming in hot with that, Nakia and Curtis as well. And Leah, I see you have your hand up. You want to touch on something?
Yes, I wanted to mention one of my favorite follow-up tactics. So if you are working for your listing or another agent's listing, the Moxie presentation is a great way for a quick follow-up. You can add PDFs there, your website, lender information if you are working or sending that to any unrepresented buyers, and it can be texted out. So while you're at that open house, an hour later or 30 minutes, thanks for showing up. Here's a great presentation on the listing, and you can send that through text. And I'm happy to meet with you one-on-one to create a presentation such as that.
That is such a good point, Leah. Like, I love that. And you guys are all practicing your buyer presentations right now in our new to the business peer group. So definitely reach out to Leah if you want some one-on-one help. But also, we've got so many classes running through Sales Pro, because I always take a look every week to either, pitch out new classes to take for our newbies or to reference for these coaching and confidences. That's something, Nakia, Curtis, and I are hugely passionate of you guys taking those classes, because you can learn so much and be able to ask questions of other FMSs like Leah in real time, our educators in real time. So that's a great point. But yeah, that buyer Moxie presentation, even a shorter and sweeter one like Leah was talking about, being able to highlight you, your skills, your background, why somebody should use you, and then making a custom one with even the property they're in, like a custom page, just to show them, hey, this is a reminder where we met. So that's awesome, Leah. Does anybody else have any questions? I see Nakia was like the boss, like getting to everybody's questions in the chat. Thank you so much. But does anybody have any questions that we didn't get to yet? No. Okay, well, I better see all of your open house posts. My challenge to each and every one of you guys, right, is coming to trainings, coming to coaching is so important, but you also have to be actionable with what you learn. So I really encourage all of you guys to have built into your business plans, whether it's there or not yet, think about adding it, a commitment to yourself that I want to host 3 open houses per month. Like, make that a commitment, make that part of your business plan, and make that part of your time blocking, so that every Monday and Tuesday, I'm going to be searching the MLS just like Rachel showed us to find and source an open house, because I know that Saturday or Sunday I want to host one. And by the time Friday rolls around, it's too late to ask to host an open house. You want to ask beginning of the week, because you guys just saw how much work you need to do to get started with it, right? And you don't want somebody else to host it in your place. So really commit to yourselves on, I'm going to host this many per month, and make that a goal and be actionable with some of the things you've learned today. With that, it's 3:03. So sorry for keeping you guys 3 extra minutes. Have a wonderful rest of your week. Nakia, Curtis, and I are here for you guys. Anything you need, don't hesitate to reach out. See you later.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, take care. Thank you.